All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this live stream. My name is Vevo. I'm an account manager working for the Dutch market. And today I'll explain a little bit about what these YouTube live sessions are about before handing over to Anna to talk to you about YouTube for Action. Anna, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I work as a video specialist for Northern Europe, so the Nordics and the Netherlands and Belgium. And I'm very excited to speak to you about YouTube for Action today, but we'll start out with a little introduction.
Cool. So how was your weekend, Anna?
It was great. I went surfing on the west coast of Ireland. It was a bit cold and rough, but it was a lot of fun.
All right, cool. Nice. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, so just to explain a little bit about these YouTube live sessions. Well, this is the first out of 5 YouTube live sessions that we're going to be hosting over the next 10 weeks. And this session is going to be focused on YouTube for Action. The purpose of this session is to give you some insights to transform your Google Ads account with a multi-funnel strategy. So as mentioned, this one is about YouTube for Action, but the next sessions that are coming up will be about display. It will be about search automation, automation of ads, about audiences, and also about measurement. And we hope that by the end of these sessions, you'll have a thorough understanding of the topics that are being discussed, and that you'll be, able to use them on a strategic and operational level. Well, as for the structure of these sessions, for today, we want to make it as interactive as possible. So we've set aside 30 minutes for a presentation from Anna, and then another 20 minutes for questions from you. And you've had the chance to submit some questions already last Friday through the form. And we received some questions, but you'll be able to also ask questions right now during the live stream. So please feel free to use the comment section in YouTube to ask some questions. Please do be aware of the fact that your name and the question will be visible to everyone who's tuning in. So refrain from asking any sensitive questions. If you do have those questions, then just reach out to your Google contact and they'll be happy to help you going forward. Also, if we don't have the time to answer the question that you've asked right now during the live stream, then also just feel free to ask the question to your Google contacts. So, actually, this was all for the practical information right now. So I'll be happy to hand over things to Anna right now to walk you through YouTube for Action.
All right. So YouTube for Action is one of the topics I'm the most excited about at the moment, because we've come to a point where we can really use video and the power of video to drive results and lower funnel metrics. So just to give you an example of why this makes sense in the first place. So if we go back to the consumer, I will pretty soon need to start doing research for Christmas gifts for my brothers. So I have 2 brothers, and it's been a struggle every year since they stopped playing with Lego to find a suitable gift. And my research period will be quite long. And even if I decide on a brand in the first place, it's very likely that I will change my mind throughout this process and end up buying another brand. So this is the period when you need to be on top of mind to convince and convert those undecided consumers. So this is my strongest sort of reason to why it makes sense to think about these kind of solutions. So let's dig into it. I'll start with a more holistic view of why you should work with YouTube for Action, and then we'll dive into the process of setting it up and the different components of YouTube for Action. So I want it to be inspirational, but also make sure that you can, during the session or afterwards, actually set it up in the account. I will have instructions for Google Ads, but it's also available in DV360 in case you use that product. So we come back to that. Video is actually the most powerful storytelling format that we have. And even if you have a strong search campaign, it's not always enough to convince those consumers that haven't decided, or if you have a more complex service, it may be difficult to explain in a few sentences or in text. And YouTube is one of the best places for video to tell your story to audience, because YouTube as a platform already has a strong viewability and audibility. We hit 95% viewability versus the industry average of 66%. And we also know, according to research from Nielsen, for example, that more than 1.8% X more attention is paid to YouTube ads than social media platform. So it's a good place to start to use video as a storytelling platform to reach those undecided consumers. And I turn to Google for ideas about what products to buy, and most of people actually do. And so this is a natural start for that research journey. But we also know that 85% of those people who use search are also on YouTube. And this is why it makes sense to use YouTube specifically as a platform to tell the stories with video, because we can make strong connections between search and YouTube. And linking back to what I mentioned before, that even the strongest search campaign, which absolutely need to be in place to make sure you capture the consumers close to purchase, even the strongest search campaign actually may miss all those undecided consumers. So this is just an example of how you can look at this. We have a bunch of people searching for your kind of products and services. A few of them will click to your website, but we still have a huge untapped market. And those are the people you can reach on YouTube, as the majority of the people in search are also on YouTube. So that was the introduction of why it even makes sense to get started with this. So let's dive into a little bit more in detail on how we can work with this. So there are basically three components of this. So using a format and bidding that is tuned for action and for encourage the customer to actually take action, together with strong audiences that are for where we can actually show that people have the intent to buy and are keen to buy the kind of products, and then measure it and prove the results of the format and audience together with the creative that you use. So to make this even a bit more tangible, we have a checklist, the fact checklist. So there are basically 4 things that need to be in place. The format itself, that's optimized towards KPIs like lead generations and conversions. Audience, figure out what audiences make sense for your business. Creative, that attract attention and direct the user to actually take action. And then the tracking, to make sure that you can actually prove the results of the setup that you've chosen. So let's walk through this step by step. But before we get started, I just want to encourage you to pick one always-on campaign or one of your products, something that where you see the need for this, and have that on top of mind while I tell you about the different steps of the fact, because I think that will make it a bit more useful and tangible and actionable for you. So starting out with a format. So that's happened a lot in terms of the formats on YouTube over the last year and a half. And it keeps happening things and we keep improving the formats. But essentially, I wanted to share with you 2 key formats today. So the first one is TrueView for Action, which is based on the TrueView in-stream format that we've had for quite some time, where you can skip the ads after the first 5 seconds, or you can choose to watch the whole ad, for example. So it's based on that format, but we've also added custom call to action, so you can actually choose to tell the customer to buy now or visit site. It comes with a companion banner that stays throughout the video that you watch, and end card, and also overlay, where you can put a message that makes sense for attracting your customers. And it comes with target CPA, so target customer acquisition. So it's actually optimized towards conversions. And when we look at the performance for this, we see a way higher CPTR, so click-through rate, than we see on the normal formats. And we actually see how it's very well optimized towards the conversion actions. So this format I'm really excited about because it works across industries. Used it for travel, for financial services, for retail, and so on. So this is just so you see an overview of that you can customize the button. So if you have a more complex product where you may need to share even more information, it could be suitable to say learn more. But if it's a very clear offer in the ad and you just want the consumers to buy right away, buy now could be a good option. And another format is TrueView shopping, where you can showcase your product. So you link this to your Google Merchant Center account, and you can showcase the products, maybe the products you have in the video or your whole inventory alongside the ad. And so we've seen results, and I've worked with multiple advertisers where this has worked very well. And these are just a few examples of where it has actually worked. So everything from online subscription services to travel to retail and so on. And just to show you very quickly how to set it up, so this is from the Google Ads. So you select, under the video campaign type, you select leads or website traffic. In the next step, you select your target CPA. So to start out with, considering these are new consumers and consumers that you're not able to reach on search, it's a good benchmark to maybe start out with putting a target CPA that's 2 to 3 times search to ensure that it gets started. And then you get to edit the call to action, add a headline, and also the companion banner that you can auto-generate from the channels, which makes it super simple, or you can upload an image to show along. All right, so that's the format. So I showed you 2 of the key formats, but there's also interaction elements that you can add, such as location extensions if you have an offline store, for example. So next step is audience. We had a format, so let's dive into the audience. So we have multiple options when it comes to audience, but it all comes down to the fact that we are able to build very specific audiences using our 7 different platforms with over 1 billion users each. So for example, if you're an advertiser and you want to capture attention of someone looking for a new TV on Black Friday, for example, we can find consumers that are in the market to buy a TV. We can see that maybe they made a search for what's the best TV on Google search. They looked at an unpacking video for TVs on YouTube, and maybe they search for a place where they can buy a TV, for example. So all these signals together make it's possible for us to not only detect information about people or what their interests are or what their declared interests are, but also what their actual intent is to buy. And this is what we use when it comes to YouTube action. So there are different targeting options, and you will see when you enter the targeting part in your Google Ads account that you have a lot of different options. So I would advise you to see what makes the most sense. What is it actually that you want to achieve? Maybe you want to create an intent and find new customers that could potentially be interested in your product, and affinity and interest categories could be a good option. You could reconnect with people who have been to your site but yet not converted, and you have remarketing, for example. But when we really look at action and formats where you know that people are researching but they still didn't purchase, we have in-market. So we know that people are in the market to buy a travel to a specific destination, or in the market to buy consumer electronics, for example. But the one that I'm by the far most excited about is the custom intent audience, where you can actually reach people based on what they just searched for. So let's dive into this a little bit more in detail. So, for example, if someone searched for, in this case, ski equipment over the last 7 days, we can create an audience of all those who search for ski equipment, and then we add us as a targeting on YouTube. So this is a way that where you can be very, very specific. You know that they are still researching for this product, and you target them on YouTube. And for those of you who work with search, you may think this could be a similar concept for you, that you use the most converting keywords, but you can also go beyond there. We don't have quality scores and those kind of things, but rather you can think of what are the consumers that you look for actually searching for. For example, if you have a B2B business, it's sometimes super tricky to set up a good search strategy, and maybe you can figure out what do those kind of people actually search for, and you can use that as a targeting option. So just a few advices when it comes to this, and when you set it up, think about it more like a search campaign when you select keywords and bidding and so on. If you work with search yourself, you could, for example, start out with all converting and assisting converting keywords from your search campaign. Set budgets based on performance. Think more of an always on rather than flighted, as we see sometimes on video, because due to the fact that this is a very fresh audience, it's only the last 7 days, we know that they are actually still searching for the product, and you can set it as an always on to always capture that intent. If you want to be a bit more granular, a bit more, try a few different audience setups. You can separate, for example, brand and generic segments, so you can see how they work and adjust bidding, for example. And I would also recommend you, there may be exceptions to this, but in general, don't overlay with very specific geo restrictions, such as cities or something, or demographics, because we know that these specific users are actually searching for a product. And you can also increase frequency cap to actually make sure that it's not there when someone is searching. And you find it in the audience setup in the account next to in-market and live event audiences. So you just create a new custom intent audience. You put in all the keywords from that you have selected, and then you have the audience created, so you can reuse it for several campaigns, and you can also go in and edit it to add and remove keywords, for example. All right, so that was very briefly on all the audience options, but I really encourage you to go into the account and see what options there are. Very often you're surprised how specific and right it would be for your product or service. So just to sum it up a little bit, some key takeaways. YouTube targeting is about capturing the intent of user, not only what they are interested about. Custom intent specifically makes a strong connection between search and video, and it can be a way to amplify the search campaign. And don't be afraid to use the broader targeting as well. If you want to find new customers, the bidding with target CPA will help you find the most valuable of those customers and the customers who are most likely to convert. Okay, so we went through format and audience. So let's dive into a bit about creative. And this is sometimes a challenge, and sometimes the video is something you don't have in place. So I want to give you some advice on how you can work with this, and feel free to reach out to your Google representative as well to discuss some ideas on how you can go forward with this. Because creative is important. Like, even if we have a strong format and we use strong audience signals, we also know that a big part of ROI actually comes down to creative, and this is where you can have a huge effect on the campaign performance. But I also want to say that it doesn't have to be $1 million investment. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It's more about doing the right things. And I'll go through a few things that we've seen work when we've tested creative at scale on YouTube for the action-oriented format specifically. So just to give you a few basics, so have a clear call to action. Essentially, you want the customer to sign up or buy or download something. So tell them that in the video as well, and show them how to do it. The second thing is front-loading your offer. So try to hook the attention in the first 5 seconds, I would say, or first 5 seconds, to have a clear, for example, problem statement. What are you actually trying to solve for the customer, and how does your product or service solve that? And don't make viewers wait for a big reveal. So don't, put out the big offer after 20 seconds, because if you didn't capture the attention in the beginning, they'll probably move on and they will probably skip the video. And repeat what you're offering. So continue to remind about the value of the product or service. So you can, for example, even if you have a clear call to action in the video, maybe you can add it to the voiceover or have clear graphics as well. So this is really the fundamentals, but there are different ways to go about this. So I'll show you a few examples of when we tested loads of creatives, a few examples of what we actually see work and a few strategies that you can think about. So the first one is tell the user what to do. So there are different ways to do this. So for example, this week's commercial, you can look it up on YouTube, but here they have like a super straight problem statement in the beginning, and then they explain the service, how it works and how it works. So here are just a few examples on how you can tell the user what to do. So the explainer, so have a clear problem statement and show step-by-step how your product or service solves for that. You can have a straight offer. So for example, if you have retail, if you're a retail client, have simple and super clear offers. Don't make it too complicated. Put out sales offer and so on. And if the customers in the market to buy, their attention will be captured. You can have a demo, say that you have a more complex service that's a bit difficult to explain, especially in just text and so on. Show it step by step how it works, and if you select it as a strong audience, it will make sense to them, and it will be something that they find valuable. And the tease, I mentioned that, but for example, in this video that we see from Bix, he basically says, so do you want to build a website? That's what we sold for. Let me show how to do this. And if you are in that market to build a website, you will listen and look at the ad. All right. Another one is to actually combine advanced targeting with very specific content. This video is probably one of the first videos I've ever seen, but it's so specific. So basically, they show step by step how you measure for a new refrigerator. So say that you have the boring task to buy a new refrigerator. You search for it on search. And then you get this video where you show step by step exactly how it works. Then you're quite confident that this advertiser can actually deliver what you need. And another way to go about is making your case. You leverage on the format and use the video to have information-rich stories. So for example, if you sell a car, show the features of the car, or I mentioned financial services or travel, for example, show step by step how it actually works. And this can be specifically useful in the cases where you just don't know how to explain the service in 2 sentences. And build your ads upside down. So this is an example from Kayak. They show right away what the key offer or the key problem statement. If you want to book a trip in London and Bangkok, Kayak is the best way to go about it. So they put the core proposition in the first 5 seconds, and then they use the rest to support that initial core proposition. And then last but not least, I really want to emphasize on this because sometimes less can also be more. So it doesn't have to be an initial huge investment to get on YouTube. But in this case, they actually use their print ads and the images from there, and they put them together to create a video where they clearly show the offer, which works very well for retail, and they use that in the YouTube campaign. So just an advice, if you feel that it's a struggle to get started with creative, this can be a very simple way to start out. All right, last but not least, let's speak a little bit about tracking, because however beautiful your ad is, however good a setup is, if you can't measure the results, you would not be able to show what value it adds to your business. So when it comes to Google Ads conversions, we have 3 different events when this can occur. So click through, when the user clicks on, for example, the companion banner, and engage view, where they watch at least 30 seconds or until the end of the ad, in case it's shorter. And these would be included in the conversion column in your Google Ads account by default. We also have view-through conversions where they didn't see the 30 seconds or until the end of the ad, but at least they saw the 5 before they skip, or even 29 seconds. And this will not be included in the conversion column, but you can find it if you add in all conversions. And one thing just to keep in mind when it comes down to tracking is that if you use the same tracking for video and search, sometimes the credit of the video is actually overridden by search, because on search we have the benefit of being able to have data-driven attribution to credit different campaigns, but we do not. For video, we only have last click attribution. So that's something to just keep in mind when you work with this. And I will just walk through step by step how you can set up tracking for YouTube, just to make sure you get a brief overview of how this can be done. And I just want to tie back to as well, if you set this up in Google Ads, sometimes you will have an analytics tracking, but to be able to capture the full value of YouTube, so the view-through conversions, the cross-device conversions, and so on, we strongly recommend to have Google Ads conversion tracking in place. So there are 2 parts of this. It's the core performance part, which should always be in place, and then a bit more extended performance to give a broader view of the performance of YouTube. So in the core performance part, we have make sure to measure the conversions and make sure to look at all conversions that are generated by YouTube. And then when it comes to extended performance, you can look into ways to actually see the full funnel impact of YouTube, but also look at offline sales and what impact it will have on store visits, for example. Okay, so the core performance part, first of all, we actually do recommend to look at YouTube's performance in isolation to surface all conversions where YouTube played a role, linking back to the overriding of search over YouTube. So this can be done by creating a separate Google Ads account and make sure that you use a separate tag for that account. So even if you have an MCC tag, make sure that you create a separate one for the YouTube account. In case you do need to put it up in the same account and use the same tagging, you can look into, for example, adding RLSA with YouTube viewers on your search campaign, because I know sometimes that's a necessary setup, and then that could be a way to see what users that convert on search were actually touched by YouTube before. But otherwise, I do recommend to put it up separately. And in any case, adding on an RLSA on search for the YouTube viewers could be a good way to strengthen your search campaign. Second step, report all conversions. So look at the conversion column where you would have the click-through and engage view conversions, but also look more in depth on the all conversions and look at the view-through conversions and see how much value that actually adds. So those who chose to skip it before the end or before the 30 seconds, but still convert after a while. And here you can use a shorter conversion window just to make sure that just to make sure that they actually saw it recently. All right, so that was the core performance. So measure and make sure that you actually look at view-through conversions as well. If you want to have a more holistic view of the impact of YouTube, you can report the full funnel and by also adding on micro conversions. So the first step here could be to actually track all pages and set up a page view as a conversion, not included in the conversion column, and make sure to set the setting count to 1 so that you don't count every page or every time they go into the same landing page, for example, but do see what kind of impact and does it do on specific page views. The second step is that you can actually look at intermediate conversions. So maybe look at the checkout that they have put products in a basket or different other steps of the checkout process. Or for example, for travel, maybe they went into a very specific hotel page and had a hotel selected. This could be valuable information to see that the customer actually made it that far. But then the third step, which is maybe the most crucial one, especially for target CPA bidding, is that you set up the conversion. That is the key conversion. It could be a sign up or a purchase on the website. you add that to the conversion column, and that will be the KPI and the conversion that you bid against. And then last but not least, if it's applicable, if you have offline stores, you can also have tracking store visits for YouTube. And if you're used to doing this on search, this works exactly the same way. So you must make sure that you have location extensions set up to be eligible. But then it will measure the store visits from all those who have clicked on the ad or viewed the 30 seconds of the ad. And essentially how it works is that we have users who have signed in and opted into location history. They will see the view on YouTube, and then that will be counted as a store visit. And we also have an example here how you can calculate store sales based on this. So if you know how many of the people who go to store who actually purchase something, and if you know the average purchase value for those consumers in the store, then you can multiply this by the total store visits, and you can see what kind of value you can attribute to store sales based on YouTube. Okay, so that was a very quick overview of the fact. And just to sum it up, you have, when you work with YouTube for Action, you have the four format, audience, creative, and tracking as building blocks for your strategy. And once you have those in place, you are ready to go. So formats, we looked at YouTube for Action and YouTube for Shopping. We have audience, where I mentioned specifically custom intent, which is a super strong way to connect search to YouTube. We have creative, where I wanted to emphasize that it doesn't have to be that complicated, but be straight, tell the customer what to do, and front load the offer that you have. And then last but not least, tracking. Use Google Ads tracking, conversion tracking, and make sure that you look at the full view of the tracking, not only the actual conversions, but maybe the view through conversions as well. And look at what intermediate and lighter conversions that make sense to track as well. And if you have an offline store, also look at store visits. All right, that was YouTube for Action in a nutshell.
Perfect. All right, Anna, thank you for walking us through the facts of YouTube for Action. So let's see if we have any questions from you as viewers on any of the building blocks or YouTube for Action in general. So we're just going to see what we have now. All right, looks like everything was pretty clear, I guess. So we don't have any specific questions for now, which is perfect. Then we can make sure that the session is a little bit shorter now. Thank you all for tuning in and viewing this live stream about YouTube for Action. Please remember that there's a next session coming up on October 1st, same day, same time, and this will be about display. So feel free to tune in for that session. If you have any further questions, what you can do is follow up with your Google contact person going forward. We'll be happy to help you on any of those questions and provide an answer. Yeah, so I think that's for YouTube for Action.
We actually got one question coming in, so I will answer that one. So if you have any other questions, do put them in now as well. But we have a question about that we use YouTube for Action for travel, where time to purchase is very long, for example, up to 60 days. So the campaign may not generate any conversions the first 2 months. So with the travel clients that I have worked with, I've seen that the distribution of conversions is actually quite different. So even if you see that the average may be actually up to 60 days, we do actually see a couple of conversions usually come in with a couple of first days. So I've seen this for airlines or for online travel services. So I would say that even if you have a long, in general, you have a long time to purchase, we do see that usually we have a couple of commissions coming in already the first couple of days. And TrueView Action, it is a longer time play, so we do encourage to test it at least for a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks before you evaluate any results. And for travel, it would be even longer. So let it run for a couple of weeks. There may not be too much activity the first days, but eventually we do see it come in. And I've seen it work well as for airlines as well as for online travel services, for example.
Cool. Thank you for submitting that question, Dennis. Let's see, we have some more questions come up right now.
Yes. So let me just see. We have. Let me see. So what do you set a CPA target to ensure that the campaign will function? It's from, I think it's a follow-up question to the first one here. So what I would recommend to set as a target, what we usually see as a target CPA target is that we can look at what we have on search and put it 2 to 3 times the target CPA that we had on search. Or if you run display, it may be the same as display or 1 to 2 times display. So that you set the target CPA to that level to make sure that you sort of leave some headroom for the higher CPA that you can expect on YouTube in comparing to search. And we also recommend to set a daily budget at maybe 10 to 20 times the CPA to make sure that it leaves some room for spending as well.
Cool. Thank you for that question too. Yeah. So you can wait a couple more minutes, see if there's any questions popping up. You want to ask some question about surfing in Ireland on the weekend? You can also do that, right?
Yeah, that works.
But maybe we'll keep it for a later session.
It's pretty good, actually. It was a bit rough this weekend. It was like wind coming in from the sea. So I was under the water just as much as I was over the water. But yeah, that's surfing in Ireland. I think that was it, actually.
Yeah, perfect. Right. All right, perfect. Again, thanks a lot for tuning in to this live stream on YouTube for Action. Remember that there's the next session on display coming up on October 1st. We'll also be in touch to send out a feedback form just to hear what you think about these type of sessions. And with that, I would say happy Monday and have a nice week. All right.